Welcome to the Ardan Labs podcast. Our special guest today is Santosh Kaveti. Santosh, dude, thank you for joining us today, man.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Glad to be here.
Yeah, super exciting. Okay, give everybody the 2-minute spiel on what you're doing today, but don't give me any history because this is a podcast about you. I don't want any information to leak out just yet. So try to just keep it to what you're doing today.
Professionally, I'm the CEO of a company called ProArch. We're a global company headquartered here in Atlanta, and we have an office or teams in UK, in London, and also in India. What do we do? Me and my team, we help our customers through their digital initiatives, meaning cloud and infrastructure, security and compliance, data, AI, and app dev. That's what we do, bottom line. A simple way to put it is we're steadfastly committed to our customers' success of their investments into their data, AI, infrastructure, and security. So that's what me and my team do.
So I was looking up, you said ProOrg. So is that proorgproject.com or ProOrg Solution?
ProArch is, I mean, I know it's spelled as if it's ProArch, but it is actually ProArch, short form of professional architects. That's where it comes from. That's why it's spelled I mean, it's pronounced as ProArch, even though it's spelled as ProArch. So ProArch Technologies is the name of the company.
All right, cool. And it sounds like you're pretty big. I mean, you have offices in Atlanta. You got an office, you said, in India. Where in India? I've been there a few times.
So in India, we have two offices. We're a fully remote company. So we actually have clusters of teams everywhere. But in India, we have offices in Hyderabad and Bangalore. So I don't know if you've been to any of those two
I've been
locations.
to Bangalore. I haven't been to Hyderabad though, but I've been to Bangalore. Yeah, it's a busy place.
Oh, it's a busy place. Absolutely. Absolutely. Here in the US, we have, of course, we're headquartered in Atlanta. That's where I am. We have offices here, but we also have offices in upstate New York. I have to.
Where? I grew up on Long Island and went to school in upstate New York.
Okay, well, we have offices in right now in Rochester, Fairport.
Rochester.
Yep.
Yeah, well, you got that beautiful university there,
Yeah, we
RIT,
do.
so
We
you
do.
can pull a lot of people out of that university.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice,
Sure.
nice. Again, you said you're helping companies with their sort of ops, their infrastructure, their all the stuff I hate to do, Santosh. I hate ops, man. I hate it. I just hate fighting config and systems. I'm a software developer by trade. I love software development because I can hit the delete key anytime I don't like something. There's like no delete key for ops. There's no, dude, I'm a little bit handy in the house, but I'm always making the wrong hole in the wrong place. And I want a delete key for that.
There is no deleting for that.
No, there's no delete key for that. All right, we're gonna get back to all this, but this is a podcast about you, and I want to really hear your story on so how you ended up in Atlanta. I mean, that's interesting. You like Atlanta? Atlanta's a great
I
city.
know. I love Atlanta. I know, like everybody else, I hate traffic, here in Atlanta especially.
I know, but I'm guessing that you were born and raised in India, so when we say traffic in Atlanta, you still laugh.
Well, you know what? I'm used to traffic in India. It's still different. It doesn't make it any better. But yes, I'm a little bit used
Well,
to traffic.
here's the difference, right? When you're in India, you never tell somebody how far away you are in distance. It's only ever time.
Time.
Because you could be a half a mile away and that could take you half an hour. I mean, in Atlanta, you could still use distance and people could gauge time, right? Like we're not at that level yet.
Not, well, we're getting there though. Even in Atlanta these days, when someone says I'm 5 miles away, I'm like, okay, 5 miles doesn't mean anything to me.
It don't mean
How
anything
long will
anymore.
it take you to get here? So that's what I'm. You're right. You're right though. So yes, I don't know how far back I can go.
No. Don't tell me. We're gonna go. Okay, we're gonna go far back. So we're gonna start there. So there's two questions I got to ask you.
Sure.
The first one is, what city were you in And what year was it when you graduated grade school, or like the equivalent of high school in India?
Oh, I equivalent of high school. I was in my hometown in India called Nizamabad. It's again very not that far from Hyderabad, so very close. Okay, and then I moved out to.
No, 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 no. What year? What year was it? What year was it?
It was 91, 1991.
1991. Okay, so that's when you were like 17,
Well, yes,
18.
when I was
I
18.
just graduated university at the end of 91. So
Really.
I get to claim I'm older than Santosh. That's good. I like to be the old man in the room, okay? Um okay, here's the next question. Clear your mind, don't think too hard, don't think too hard. Give me that first memory you have on hacking on a computer. First memory.
First memory. Yeah, it was. I did not go to computer school, so but I was curious about computers. So I took a training program, um, and it was my first memory of hacking was they gave me this terminal. Again, it was all DOS. We were supposed to learn Fortran on that, and you know we had the person who gave me the terminal didn't have the credentials. Well, guess what? It was very easy to guess the credentials.
What was it? Password 1 2 3 4 5.
It was literally 1 2 3 4 5 6.
Yeah, there we go. That's hilarious, man. That is hilarious.
And you'll be surprised how often I run into that, even today, you know.
No, well, you know what? I've told all of my family about the password apps, right? Now, I know that LastPass got hacked and all that, but I like LastPass. I still use it. But like if you're not using 1Password or LastPass, I feel like you're just setting yourself up for some
Absolutely.
failure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Being one of the things that we do is provide cybersecurity services. So believe me, we get, I want to say we probably get, uh, hacked every day. You don't know how many messages I get per day, per week, saying, "Hey, this person is trying to impersonate you. Are you this person?" And this comes from my colleagues, my teams, my close family members. So I tell everybody, look, by virtue of who we are, y'all need to elevate your cybersecurity education, and make sure that your passwords are strong, or use passkeys, or use authenticator, do something that's better than just birthdays, and anniversaries.
Yeah, sometimes people don't believe me when I say I don't know any of my passwords. I just know one, right? That's the master account to that.
Same
I
here.
don't know any of my passwords. Couldn't tell you what they are right now if and I wouldn't even be able to memorize them because they're so wacky
There's
too,
no
right?
exactly. There's no way I would remember them.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. Okay, so 91, you graduated high school. I kind of want to go back around the high school years because I love sort of getting a sense of what people were doing in high school. What were their favorite subjects? But even more than that, like sports, family life. Like, what did your parents do
Okay.
for a living?
So, my dad was a teacher. He taught um, in high school, well, equivalent of high school. So in India, the way it works is your high school really is it stops around 10th. At least now I know students have more options, but back when I went to school, your schooling was up to 10th. Then you have this 2 years of what was called as an, you know, pre-college. 11th and 12th were like a pre-college, and then you go to college.
But I
That's
heard you have, yeah, but you had to take the national test. So
yes,
how did you do on that test?
everyone had to take the national test,
Yeah.
and I bombed the first time very badly, to the point where I told myself, no, it's not even worth it. So I tried again. So in other words, I spent 1 year. I did go to college, but I that's not what I wanted to do. So I wrote the test again, retook it. I got 1400. That was my rank was about
Wow.
somewhere in 1400s. So it
That's a
was
good number, man. The second
not
time
not a
around.
bad number, not a bad number.
No, when you're talking about millions of people taking that test
Yep, not a
at
bad
the same
number.
time.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you did you bomb that test the first time just because you were like immature and you just really didn't? I'm kind of curious if you think back on it now, like what?
Yeah, so no, not really. Well, you know, you'd asked me a couple of questions there. So, if I can go back, my dad was a teacher, mom was a housewife. We're a family of four. We had four siblings. Then, of course, we also had our my grandmother and her mom, my great grandmother, used to stay with us. So we were a big family. Um, Now, because my dad was a teacher and also a government school teacher or college teacher, he was transferred quite a bit. So we moved around all the time. In fact,
Mm.
that's why I actually have very few childhood friends. I have a few very good ones, but not many because you know every other year I would move around. Okay. Uh,
You're like the equivalent of an army brat at
I
that point.
yes, that's what I can relate to. Absolutely.
Wow.
I bombed the first time because as a family we were going through certain things. There was a death in the family. My dad's brother, my uncle, it was a big deal. We were a very close family. He had passed away, so we were going through a lot of things as a family. So I was completely distracted. I was not at all prepared. That was the reason that I bombed. But as far as the subjects go, um, I was not studious one. Never was like, okay, I want to be first in the class. No, I preferred to have fun. The only subject that I was interested in, that I, that I was passionate about, was mathematics. There was only one. Maths is one that I would make an effort to learn, go deep, understand. Everything else was okay. I'm doing well.
What
I
did your
got it.
dad say when you didn't did like I'm really curious since your dad is a professor and he's bouncing around. Was that a hard conversation at the time when he saw the grades or he just
Actually,
understood and that was it?
I think they understood. I mean, my dad and mom, they both understood what I was going through. They believed in me, so they supported and said, "Look, try again." So no, they probably were upset, that I didn't get to the first time. I had to spend 1 year, but they were very supportive.
But what did you do that year? Did you have to work at least while you were studying to take it
No,
again?
no, there's one thing, about maybe it's a culture in India. They wouldn't let me work. They basically said, "Look, until you're through with your college, we'll support you. All we want you to do is make sure that you go study and make something of yourself." So no, I didn't have to work.
But you couldn't study 24/7, so like what were you
Not really.
doing?
I did go to I did join a bachelor's, in a college,
Okay.
but my main focus was to crack this exam, the
I
next
see.
year.
So you were still able to go to school.
Still able to go to school.
Um, okay, okay, that's cool.
But
And
I'm not going to say that I really was paying attention to the school I went to, because again, my passion was to get into engineering.
you're right. And you love the math. So once you get the new test, now a bunch of doors can open up for you. So what do you decide to do at that point?
So unlike now, my kids have so many options. Back then, the way it worked was, well, they looked at my score, um, and then said, you have two options. This is the government body that kind of decides what you are eligible, what your options are. They said there is this private college you can go to, and you can study electronics and communications in this private college.
But you
Or
have to pay for that.
I have my dad
Private.
has. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
had to pay for that. Or there's this public university that you can go to. It's mechanical engineering. Those are those are options. You pick. It was an easy decision for me. Again, I don't come from wealthy family. So my dad was a teacher, so we were like, nope, I'm picking the public university. I'm doing mechanical engineering.
How far away was that from home?
Oh, it was about 10 hours by road.
Wow.
So back then it was definitely far, because I don't think that I traveled that much being a kid. So it was 10 hours away by road.
But you got to be excited because now you're going to be on your own. They give you the housing too, right? Or you have to pay for
Yes,
that.
yes, they give the
Yeah.
housing, fees is minimal. You laugh. If my yearly fees was probably like $100 now, so that's what it cost me. But yeah, it was very close to Bangalore, by the way. It was only like 3 hours away from Bangalore, where I went to college.
How many kids went to that public school? Was it like 10,000 kids? Was it more? Was it less?
Probably around 5,000
5,000.
per
Okay.
annum. Yep.
So you went there to study a 4-year degree in mechanical engineering. Was it more of a computer science degree where you did less sort of liberal arts, or was it,
No,
or no
see,
liberal
I
arts?
wish I wish there were liberal arts back then, but no liberal arts. It was more, um, you know, engineering topics, maths, science, physics, chemistry. So it was
Uh,
no philosophy, no liberal arts, no languages. I mean, it was. That's what I wish. Today I think they have a lot more options, but back then, nope, it was technical in nature for the most part.
did you
And
enjoy being there for those 4 years? Like you were ready there? Was it tough? Was it easy?
it was not tough. I mean, you know, it was actually, I had best memories, made lots of friends. It was a good college. You know, Back then, the very first year, there was a drought. I remember this. So we didn't have a lot of water. Again, this is 1994. So I still remember distinctly, like not being able to sometimes shower every day, just because we didn't have water. Those things, but those things never bothered you when you're with,
Nah, when you're young.
yeah,
Just
right.
everybody smells at that point. So
Exactly.
nobody smells if everybody smells.
Exactly. So we had some hardships like that, but they don't really count. I had best memories, really great friends. Many of my friends are here now in the States. So no, it was not hard at all.
So what was your favorite, if you can remember, your favorite class and your like worst class at university there?
Um, my favorite classes continued to be mathematics. Okay. My worst classes actually probably were core mechanical engineering, deeper subjects when you really go into the engineering design. I had difficult time really understanding and grasping the concepts and looking them from practical point of view.
You know, when you look back on that, was maths an option in terms of a degree at the time? No. So there was no concept of getting a mathematical degree. It was just
No, no, no,
curriculum.
not from engineering perspective. No,
Oh,
you could go into what's called a Bachelor of Science, not Bachelor of Engineering or Bachelor of Technology. If you pursue Bachelor of Engineering or Technology, you had no maths. But if you pursue Bachelor of Science, yes, you had an option to actually select mathematics.
why didn't you do that? Because over and over again, you're telling me math was
I wish I
your fun.
knew. I wish I knew. Simple answer is, back then career prospects, growth, opportunities,
Mm,
as opposed to pursuing the passion. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everybody around me, all my friends went into engineering, and I was also like, well, looks like if I really want an option, like a good career, then I have to go down this path. That was
All
probably
right.
the reason.
But you graduate. You
I
graduate in
did.
90, what, 94, 95?
Well, 94 to 98 was
Oh, the time you were there. All right. So in 98, you graduate now with this undergraduate, right, degree in mechanical engineering. What's the next step? More school, or are you going into industry?
so many of my friends wrote an exam. Um, it's called GRE. That was the exam that we wrote to get into universities in states.
Yeah, yeah, the GRE. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And my dad, my dad wanted me to go pursue and study in the US. Okay.
So the idea was a master's degree in the United
The idea
States.
was the master's
Okay.
degree. So my friends applied. I applied. I don't think I did that well, but I did get into a few colleges. I went to Utah State University,
Utah, all the way to Utah,
all the
dude.
way
That's a
from,
completely different world, man.
what can I tell you, from Hyderabad is pretty hot. And when I say hot, it gets to like 130, 140, in the summer to Utah. So that's where I landed when I landed here.
But now you also have a sticker price problem because, right? I mean, this is a
Yes.
next level cost for
Oh yeah.
even if it's a 2 year degree, and you got to find a place to live and you got to eat. I mean, talk to me about the money part because it's one thing to get into the school; it's another thing to have to be out there. You had to get a job. Like, talk a little bit about that.
So it was tough. My dad took a mortgage on our house and gave me enough. Probably would have lasted me for a couple of semesters, and then said, "Look, I can. This is the best I could do. Then after that, you're on your own. You need to go figure
I
this
think
out."
he's got three more kids too. Not
I
just
need
you.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's got three more kids to go. So um, I I wasn't able to get a scholarship or anything like that. So I had to take up an on-site. You're allowed as an international student, you can work up to 20 hours a week on site somewhere. So I had gotten a job on site, and it was tough. My first pay was I got about $125 per month. That's what they paid me back then. So which paid my rent. That was my rent was
Wow.
125 per month.
How many people were you living with? That
I was
100
living with, I believe I was living with four. Four of us were
poor
living in
people.
a small, one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Again, had a great time there, but 125 pay. And then, of course, I remember many times, I'll give you one story. Um, so back then, you could get, like, if you go to, you can go to Burger King or McDonald's or Taco Bell. There were times where I had just $1, and my option was a lot of times like a 7-layer burrito
Yeah.
that I could choose. It was 99 cents.
You could trash Taco Bell all you want, but
Yeah.
you could eat
Hey,
for $1. Yeah.
exactly. So that's what we did. If I had $1.25, I was able to get a Big Mac or a burger or something. But many times I was like, okay, no, I can't do that. I have to stick with my 7-layer burrito.
And you wouldn't change that for the world looking back
I
at it. No,
wouldn't. Looking back, no.
no, 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 no. But there had to be days where you're just like, I just don't want to live like this anymore. Or you
Actually,
didn't think about it.
oh, I think the tough days were when I went to Utah, I realized I didn't want to do masters in mechanical engineering. And
Okay.
I was like, why am I doing mechanical engineering and that too masters in mechanical engineering? And that's probably was tougher for me to digest and say, okay, can I really start over? Um, you know, will I have an opportunity to start over financially, even if I want to do that? How do I do
When
that?
you say start over, you mean walk away from the master's degree and get another undergraduate?
Or go into masters but pursue something else, and that's what I did.
Once you get the degree. Oh, so you got,
Well, I
oh,
didn't
talk to
finish.
me.
So semester in, I decided no, this is not what I want to do. So one of my friends was pursuing his master's in computer science in Kansas State, another agricultural university. So he said, "Look, come over here. What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to do mathematics." This is the time where I said, "I want to do something in mathematics. Can I do it?" He said, "Yeah, I think so." Of course, everyone else was trying to convince me I have to pursue something in software engineering or computer science, you know, and I said, okay, and let me try to apply there. And I actually applied there in both departments, masters in software engineering and masters in mathematics, just to see what happens. Both of them accepted me
Wow.
and asked me to come over and say you can do dual masters. You just have to take more courses every semester, and you probably
Oh,
have
but you did a dual. You were going to do the dual.
our exactly. I was gonna do dual masters, so I went to Kansas.
Okay, but that's twice as much money for credits. Though
I know,
cost of living had to be better there, right?
definitely better, but I had $20 in my pocket when I went from Utah to Kansas.
Wow.
When my friend picked me up from Kansas City, I literally only had $20 in my pocket, and I had no idea. I had a very good friend of me. He said, look, come stay with me. I'll take care of you a little while. We'll figure something out. That's all I had.
And this was a friend from where you grew up.
From where I did my bachelor's in
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
that's where I knew him.
Nice. Yeah.
So started in Kansas in Manhattan. They actually call it Little Apple. There's a it's about 80 miles or 70 miles from Kansas City
Okay.
to the west. That's where I landed, and of course got there with no money and no idea what to do, no idea how am I gonna pay tuition. I remember I did get a job in their facilities department. Um, so I did for for a few days, clean up stuff, did what I had to do. Again, didn't complain because I needed a job, I needed money. So I had to, pick up trash, clean stuff up. That's what I did. And I was lucky. Mathematics department offered me a scholarship, and they said if you're
Wow.
willing to be a teaching assistant, you seem to have really good math background. You did well on your math scores, so we'll give you a teaching assistantship. But this is what you need to do. I had to teach some courses. I had to tutor some kids, but they offered me full pay, and they were going to pay for the
Wow.
whole master. So I was like,
So yeah, so that was going to be paid for by work, basically work study.
yep,
Okay.
yep, that's
Okay.
exactly. I was lucky to have that, so I did that. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I made really good friends.
But what about the other? Because you did dual. It means
So
you had to
yes,
pay for the.
I pursued both of them, masters in mathematics as well as software engineering. I finished my software engineering. I really was going to. I enrolled into PhD. In fact, I convinced mathematics department to form a department called Applied Mathematics, to bring in a professor from genetics and a few professors from mathematics. And we actually were doing research on genes and alleles. We're trying to figure out which
Wow.
allele reflects which trait. Either way, it was awesome. I had enrolled into PhD, and they said, "Look, if you do PhD, you'll get maths anyway, so you might as well just go straight to PhD." That's what I did. I had enough coursework completed for my master's, so I enrolled into PhD.
Without getting
And
the master's, before officially getting your master's degree,
before I officially got my
you
master's
just
degree,
rolled right into the
rolled right
PhD.
into a PhD into applied mathematics, finished my master's in software engineering, and of course, then life happened. You know, Look, my parents, especially my mom, really never asked me for anything. I was always giving. I was always taking. And one day, I get a call from her, essentially saying, "Look, we need your help." I think my parents' health was not that great, so they needed financial support, and was it was not an easy call for her to make. And she basically said, "Look, we need for you to support the family if you
You're the
can."
oldest of the four.
I'm the oldest. That's why I got the call, you know. And I didn't think twice. Actually, dropped out of the school.
What year is this? This is
This
2000,
was 2002.
2002. So before you could finish the PhD,
Before I
so
could finish the
you
PhD,
did have a completed master's degree in computer science, though.
I
That
did.
one you had. You
Yes.
now in 2002 decide you got to fly back home, support the family.
Right.
How
So,
were you feeling? In all honesty, I know you didn't hesitate because that's what family does. I mean, in the back of your head, you must have also just been like, "Oh,
yeah, the toughest thing for me was feeling like I've disappointed my professors. They were working very closely with me. The toughest feeling was letting them down. And of course, I felt like, oh man, I can't do this anymore. Um, that was difficult to digest, but at the same time, I knew what I needed to do, and that's when I called one of my friends in Atlanta. I told her, "Look, I need a job," and she said, "Well, come on over here. We'll figure something out. We'll find you something." And that's it. That's when Atlanta
so you
became.
didn't fly back to India."
No, no. I think what they really wanted was, look, we need some financial help and support. Three siblings, what they're going through, it was becoming very tough for my dad to manage
I
at the
see.
time, and
So
especially with his health, as well. So
So the idea was you had to stop going to school and you had to get a job that paid enough for you to live in the States and still bring some money back.
That
Uh,
you're absolutely right. That's
so the
exactly right.
person that you called in Atlanta, how did you know them? That was also
Again,
from
very
undergrad.
very close friend from my bachelor's time. I
Wow.
knew her very well. Her and her husband, we were all, kind of very close to each other. They got to know each other when we were in bachelor's, and they got married later on. But I knew them very well, so that's the way I called, and she said,
And
"Come."
so you called and you're just hoping there was a job. What company was that? Do you remember the name of it?
So when I got here, she was working for a company called the Southeastern Data Cooperative, short form SADC. So they were building a ERP for electric distribution utilities, mainly cooperatives. Okay, so they had this, ERP that they were modernizing. They had old HP 3000 platform that they were trying to modernize, and they tried a couple of times, did not work out. But that was the process that they were in. So that was the company. So she asked for an interview for me. They interviewed me, and I got in.
What was the role that you,
Programmer. So,
programmer?
yep.
Because you had the master's degree at least in the computer
Yes, I
science.
did. I did. So I started off as programmer.
So
Uh,
what,
Here at Ardan Labs, we believe in empowering companies to reach their full potential through innovative technology solutions. Trusted by small startups and Fortune 500 companies alike, we specialize in high-performance software consulting, training, staffing, development, and now AI. With over 14 years of experience, Ardan Labs has trained over 30,000 engineers and served over 1,000 companies worldwide. Whether you're mastering Go, Rust, Kubernetes, Terraform, or blockchain, we're your strategic partner for performance-grade solutions. Let's elevate your tech journey together. Reach out to Ardan Labs today.
the way I got in was they tried to move from HP 3000 backend and green screens to they wanted to go to client server model. So they had wanted to use the VB as a front end with the it's HP 9000 was their backend. Of course, Oracle became their database at that point. That did not work out. So then they went to web, and they were using combination of HTML, some JavaScript, and Java servlets. So
mm,
that's what I did. So I
I was
coded that.
waiting for you to say PHP, but no, they were doing
No,
Java
no,
servlets.
the JavaScript, HTML, and servlets. The
Okay.
Java
Now
servlets.
that was all new technology for you. I doubt you were
Yes,
touching that at
yes,
university.
that was all new technology. Especially servlets, definitely were new technology.
Yeah, and I see, you were pulling your hair out too, right? Because you like
Hmm.
that stuff was very, very clunky at the time, wasn't it? In
Yes,
2002.
very clunky. Oh, believe
Yeah.
me, yes. The amount of JavaScript code that we have written, um, what would have taken probably an hour now, we probably spend months writing our own frameworks and codes and doing things on the front end. God,
How many other people were you working with when they hired you there? Was it a small team?
I think their programming team was probably close to 60. So they had
That's a
COBOL
big group.
programmers. By the way, COBOL was their mainframe. It was the everything was all the business logic was in COBOL. So the front end team we probably were about 15 people. Then they had COBOL programmers were like probably close to 20. Then we had a couple of DBAs and people who knew the HP 9000 side of stuff. And there was also a Windows. There was again the way they did what the architecture was. There were you a front end. There's a Windows server in between, and that server had all the Windows services, web services, and the whole integration.
It's
And
like
that
running IIS at the time. I think that's what they
IIS,
called it.
of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
yes, exactly. So, and that team was probably 10. So overall, we were close to like 60 people.
Did you get that? Did it work the second time around with you on the team? Did they
It
get this
did.
thing
It
working?
did. They did make it work. We went through several, iterations, but yes, they finally were able to make it work. It was not easy, I'm just gonna say. And it's funny because I'll share with you one story. Um, Not until I actually went to co-ops, utilities, and saw them use the software, I really understood why they were asking for certain features. Like they would ask for shortcut keys for every action. Okay, like it doesn't matter. We should not be able to use the mouse. That's what they're used to in 3000. They never had mouse and they would never touch mouse and everything just happened and they don't even have to see the screen, right? So, and we say the client server model, we say this is a modern software, but a lady at a co-op showed me how she would process her service orders without looking at the screen, just going
Mm,
blindly like this by looking at them. And now she says, I have to not only look at the screen, I have to pay attention to where I'm clicking, I have to use the mouse. And you know what? It takes me twice as as much time that
sure,
it would take me on 3000. And you call this modern?
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the terminal was the key almost stayed in the same place
Exactly.
until you were filling out a form. But even that, yeah, no,
Exactly.
for sure, for
Yep.
sure. But you had to help her, so
Hey,
you
at least
got them to the
I
point.
understood why shortcuts keyboard was like, sacred for them, having every action as a shortcut.
See that back in the day, that was so important to have those people building the systems to be out in the field and feel some pain. Like this is the pain that you're trying to solve, right? Because if not, you're so there's no empathy involved in anything you're doing.
That was my boon and a curse because I started asking questions. Like I would always, I enjoyed programming, I loved it, but my curiosity was always, oh, why are we building this? Who are we building this for? Can I go talk to them? Can I see this in action? I want to see how they're using, what we're writing as a code. And I think everyone started getting tired of my questions, and they would start moving me around. And finally, they said, okay, we'll put you in charge of beta implementation. So you just need to go, implement our beta software and feel the pain. So that's what I did for a long time. We
So
traveled
how
probably 35, 40 states. So I loved it.
so oh you got to oh you've been to more states than I have.
Oh,
I've been to I've been to all East Coast and stuff, but like I haven't been to Kansas or Wyoming or Dakotas or Montana. I mean, that's pretty cool.
it was really cool. And of course, when I say, of course, this software was written for co-ops. And there were places that I would go to. We would go to into gas station and say, "Hey, by the way, there was supposed to be a hotel here that I was supposed to stay here." And the guy there would say, "Yeah, yeah, you were here. There's a room upstairs, you know, and the food is right there. This is it."
That's wild, dude. That's a whole nother level, man. Wow. So, how long were you with this company? Because it saved you, right? Like it got you the income you needed for your family.
It did. I think it also gave me a purpose. Once I started understanding that we are, in a way, affecting lives, we're actually helping people and indirectly in certain way. Um, it really gave me purpose too. It did save me. So I was there with them from 2002 all the way till 2015. When I
Oh,
did
dude, you were there 13
ProArch.
years.
I definitely was.
So,
If it was not for ProArch, I probably would have continued to stay there. Just so you know.
so briefly, kind of, you started as a really a regular software engineer, right? But over 13 years, how far did you progress in that company? Because you even the friends that brought you in there must have left by that point too, right?
Many of
So
them did.
did you become a director at some point? Did you even get to be like uh, talk a little bit about 13 years of being there?
Of course, yeah. So I loved it there. So, wow, lots of experiences. I was a programmer. After a while, again, because of my curiosity, they would put me in charge of design group. I was also in charge of architecture group. Then I was put in the maintenance group. Um, it's interesting. I moved around so much. And after a while, as I said, I was not only overseeing the entire software development, but the release management, technical support, and all the way to implementations. When I left, I was their CTO.
Oh, we got all the way to CTO.
I was lucky. It was a lot of support, but yes, I was their CTO.
Dude, that's wild, man. Did you even think when you started there?
I know I had, I did not think that I would be able to go to CTO level.
That's really interesting. How
Yeah.
long were you the CTO before you left in
I think
15,
I was probably for 4 years. I was
four
there.
years? Wow. So you really saw that entire business sort of take shape from a technology perspective.
When I joined, I think they had close to, I want to say maybe 200 customers. When I left them, they had close to 750. So we definitely grew, and the software went through two iterations. Before, as I said, it started off as a web. Then we went back to Windows Forms because of the speed, the need for the speed. The web back then was just simply not as responsive as they were expecting it to be. There was too much data, too many controls, too much going on screens for web to
Well,
accommodate.
you couldn't trust the compute power at the client anyway. That was the big deal.
So we ended up moving to Windows Forms. Of course, now I think they're back to web, but the Windows Forms UI
Wow.
really, I mean, that's when I got into Microsoft world.
So I had a question now, it just slipped my mind hearing all that stuff. But okay, so now you're the CTO, you're there for 4 years, you've climbed the complete ladder. Are you thinking that's it? This is where I'm gonna have my entire career. Like, what happens that causes you to decide to take this risk and start a company?
So I always knew that there is a different way to build software. I noticed that I've learned so much just being there. I also learned what not to do, how to build products and software in a much better way. And that's what led me to form ProArch, and say maybe I can give this a shot. Okay. And actually, the way it transpired was I founded ProArch in 2006, but didn't officially join ProArch until 2015.
Yeah, this is odd. So
Uh,
you helped,
so
some people came to you, friends, and said, we want to do this.
it was just me, and my brother, and yes, I did have two more friends as well who supported me through the journey. So we said, you know what, let's see if we can, found a company that can do a better job in building products. Okay, we have this knowledge of I saw programming, I saw the entire architecture, training, implementation, the entire life cycle evolve two iterations or three iterations, and then said no, there's a better way to do this than what from our learning and experience.
But so your younger brother by 2004, did he finish university
He,
at that
yeah,
point?
he finished. 2006 is when I founded ProArch officially. So he had just graduated from his bachelor's in computer science back in India. So he then, we then immediately, he became an entrepreneur. Then of course he took a break in between, and guess what? He went to Kansas State, finished his master's, in computer science. This time in computer science, he was very clear. He was like, "No, I'm gonna stick to computer science." From even from the beginning, he was very clear that he was gonna be a computer engineer, computer scientist, and hardcore programmer at heart.
Yeah, I remember I was going to say before, you love math, but you haven't really been able to sort of buckle down and leverage it, right? This whole career. And now I'm wondering, I mean, you can be honest, he's going to listen anyway, right? Like, he's a better software developer than you, right? He's
Oh,
better.
hands down, he's definitely a better software developer than I. Yeah, because I for some reason I couldn't just stop at writing software. I had to go poke, everywhere to kind of figure out why this, why that, and
So
so
while you continue to work at the other company and you're climbing the ladder for those 13 years, you help with your brother and two friends start this other company. How many hours a week would you say you were putting into this other company at the time?
um so interesting story. So in 2006, what I did was the way it started was I went to my CEO back then and said they were actually losing some market share, and I know that there's got to be a better way than to build or to modernize the software, the second iteration. And what I proposed to him was, look, if you let me, I can do this for you. I'd probably do it for faster, cheaper, and better, but I have to do it on my own outside of the company. He thought about it for a while and came back to me and said, well, I can give you a chance, give you an opportunity. I don't know if this is going to work out or not. As long as you continue to work for me,
Mm.
I'll give you a chance to try this out.
So you basically
So
were
somebody
allowed
gave
to
me took a
hire.
chance. Exactly. Somebody, took a chance in me, and when I proposed that idea and said, okay, I'll let you do this. So I then hired somebody to run ProArch. That's how the ProArch was set up, and that's how
What a
the
crazy
way.
situation. Like I don't know. I feel like I don't know if being your boss, I would have. There's almost a conflict of interest there, isn't it? You're hiring your own company as a third party.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought he would say, no, even if he took a chance, I thought he would say, okay, if you do that, I was prepared to be out. But that was one of the conditions is no, I want you to continue to work for me because I don't know, maybe it was trust, maybe it was they weren't ready to lose me because of what we've accomplished so far, or they needed more time, whatever the reasons were. As long as they were okay, their board was okay, I was like, I didn't have anything to lose. So it was a transparent relationship, but still, that's how it started.
But now all this new development is happening in your new company, right? Like
Yes,
workforce is also shifting.
of course.
And then now I'm interested in this because you're building product, right, for them. Um, did you get how did you talk about ownership rights with the stuff that you were building? Like
No, it was so our agreement was simple. They owned the IP. We were just providing our
development services.
development services to them. So that we were extensions of their teams to get things done faster and in a better way.
It was
You know,
just being paid out of a different bucket at this point because nobody was a full-time
exactly,
employee.
exactly,
It was a
exactly,
B2B relationship
exactly.
that you had interest in. Wow.
That I had interest in. I know it's a peculiar situation, but that's
Did
how it started.
anybody in the company ever, I know the boss was okay with it, but nobody ever questioned it? Nobody ever brought
No,
it
no,
up? Nobody?
they did, of course they did. But I was look as long as I knew that I was doing the right thing, and there was no actual material conflict of interest. Everything was transparent. Um, as long as the CEO and the board was okay. Personally, I didn't have any issue with it, but I also knew that at some point I had to stop this and give ProArch a chance.
Yeah,
So I
because
was
you
I
have to
was
go beyond one client, right? At some
exactly I
point, you
was
have to grow.
honoring exactly I was honoring my agreement. There was not even a contractual agreement. It was gentleman's agreement saying, look, I need for you to. It gave me a chance, though. It gave me a chance to understand how to run a business. I'll be indebted to them and the ex-CEO forever because he took a chance in me. It was as you said, interesting relationship, but he did take a chance in me, gave me an opportunity. He basically showed me how to run a company. What does it take to run a company? I learned that. In 2015 is when I went to them and said, look, I did this long enough. I have to go give ProArch a chance. Please let me go. Do that. And they said, we totally understand. Go do what you need to do.
Are they
And
still a client of yours?
they are still a client of
Wow.
ProArch. They are still a
Wow.
client of ProArch.
Wow. That's
So
amazing, dude. Like that. This is
right.
a really rare story, especially to keep a client that long. So you really must make them feel safe and confident in what it is you're building for them. But that also must have meant that they reduced a large amount of their full-time employment workforce. How much of this are you doing for them?
In fact, that's what everyone thought so too in the beginning, that, oh my God, people will lose their jobs. I remember this very distinctly. When we started the relationship with SADC, now they are known as by different name, by the way, they changed their names, but their workforce was close to like 120 or 120. Now they probably are like 700 plus. I don't know the exact count. So they grew as a company as well because their customer base was growing, the services were growing, the revenue streams were growing. In between, we added bunch of new revenue streams for them. So they were really growing, and they continue to grow. They continue to do well. We probably don't do as much as we used to do for them, and they work with many vendors, not just with us. They have a lot of technology partners, not just with us. And our strength and probably leverage is the fact that we understand their business, we understand their customers, we understand, you know, the intent, the purpose of their software. And that's probably what differentiates us from maybe other technology partners, is the fact that we actually understand how and where it is used.
Now I'm curious. You're going to leave the CTO position. What is going to be your core focus at the company now?
Really good question. So that's when I really tapped into my network. I needed the leadership. I was here in Atlanta, and I also needed to figure out how are we going to grow this company? What are we going to do? So it was almost starting from scratch. At least by then, I knew what it takes to run a business, all the different pieces from supporting functions perspective. More importantly, what it takes to run a global business. So we decided to partner with Microsoft. We continue to partner with them. I had, invited my couple of my really good friends from my network to join me, and they did join me. Then we started formulating the strategy of what our focus is going to be, and we're a product development or product engineering company by DNA, but really we also wanted to understand Azure, of course, was just becoming popular back then. So we wanted to understand the infrastructure and the cloud computing and how that is going to change things, and that's what we got into. Then I also, again, so far, ProArch grew organically and inorganically as well. I've acquired 4 companies so far. But slowly, clarity started emerging that I need to have cloud computing, background to be able to understand the infrastructure, take care of it. And then, of course, we already had product engineering background, but the data was becoming, the big data technologies, the data was becoming super popular. So we needed to really get into the data side of the equation. So my first acquisition was actually in the UK. I had acquired a small company. They too were a product engineering company. It's an interesting story. This was before Brexit. They were a small company, but I loved their ethos, the way they build products, the methodology and the approach that they took. So I acquired them. Then, of course, Brexit happens and they lost their customers very quickly. But the good thing was we believed in ourselves, and we brought it back. In a few years, we were definitely we were like a 1 million in revenue when I first acquired them. Went to zero, and brought it back to close to 6 million in a few years.
So I'm going to interrupt you for a second, because how many, when you make the switch to full time, and I'm guessing you took over the title of CEO when you did that, how many clients did you acquire over those, like, say 13 years or 12 years? You started in 2006.
For the first 12 years, I only had 4 clients.
So when you switched back over to be full time, you had 4 clients. All right, you had the one the company you worked at, and you were able to acquire sort of 3 more in that time frame.
Yes.
So your job then is to acquire new clients, grow the company, which isn't an easy thing to do, but it sounds like to me that you took the approach of buying some smaller, I'm not even going to call them competitors, but smaller companies in the space that had a
I
certain
did.
profile and a certain, that was your approach initially.
My
Why,
approach,
why that
my
approach? That approach takes cash.
That's a very good question. A very good question. So my approach was, we first need to have strong solutions to take to market that are relevant. How am I going to do that? Am I going to build on my own, or am I going to go acquire the companies? Um, so that's the position that I took, and I needed solutions in cloud and infra, and then security and compliance, data and AI, and app dev.
And this is because in 2015, 16, the cloud was still fairly new.
Fairly new.
Even the cloud providers, the Amazons and the Google, didn't have the systems they have today
No,
to do this stuff.
they
Okay.
didn't. That presented an opportunity for us. In fact, the very first thing when we hired a team here in the US, in Atlanta, we were actually delivering for large VARs like SHI, Software One. They would use us as we became their elite delivery partners, because some things, they're not into the core delivery of it. So we would help them. That's how that competency started. So while I was trying to figure out, okay, I need solutions, and then it occurred to me, okay, I can probably even do this inorganically. Why do it organically? And that's when I started looking for companies, and found companies for the most part through references or through my network. And that's the approach we took. The big one was in 2020, right in the middle of pandemic. I acquired a company based out of New York, upstate New York. That's how we ended up having an
In
office.
Rochester.
Yep. And they were very good in cloud and infra. So it brought in depth to our cloud and infra team. They also had a good set of managed services, but they also were trying to build security and compliance set of services. So, and they were also Microsoft, ecosystem. In fact, their revenue was higher than ours when we acquired them.
So to the extent we can have this conversation, this I'm really interested in, because you need cash. Talk to me about how you approach the idea, especially a company is making more revenue than you. I mean, why don't they just buy you, right? Because I'm Ardan Labs, right? At some point, I'd like to retire. At some point, I'd love for a company to come in and buy us. I know we need a good client portfolio. You're buying people. Actually, I want to know what you're buying, right? What are you looking for? And then, as generalized as possible, I'm just curious, is it 2 times revenue, 4 times revenue? Like, what are those numbers? To the extent that you can share some of that in
Yeah,
a generalization, right? Like,
love to.
just super interested in your thoughts there, or how
Absolutely
you
love to.
do it.
So I will tell you where we are today and what our M&A strategy is, which continues to be very important. Today we have a strong board. I have a local PE firm here, investment banking firm called M South Capital. Great partners. They've sponsored acquisitions. We are a growing concern. We've been growing at the pace of 20 to 25% year over year over the last several years. For us, we're a small company. Still a small company. We are close to just now getting into 50 million plus range.
Yeah, I don't call that small, but that's me. It's
Uh,
small for where you want to be. That's big for where I.
so but the what we've learned from the past experience was having a network, having really see my brother went to Emory here in Atlanta. He did his executive, sorry, not executive, his MBA in Emory, and he met with some great profs. A couple of professors became our advisors and shareholders. Okay, they are not only they are practicing professors is what I would call them. They help many companies. They have PE network. That network is very important, and they also give us advice just from looking at us financially, what we're doing good, what we're not doing good, and so on. So they brought us that fiscal discipline, the governance that we needed as a company, because it's one thing to go from a small company to 50 million, but 50 to on top, you need scale, you need team, you need operating, plans internally. So that's where we spend a majority of our time. So we have M&A team right now, and what we look for every year, like this year, we're looking to acquire maybe about 10 to 12 million dollars in revenue, and that too, in certain areas. We have a financial model that we run through to see if it's going to work, and what we need to do. We tend to focus on smaller deals because we can't really make bigger deals right now where we are. We don't. I don't have a big PE from back in with a lot of equity money. But what we can do today, we look for companies that have enterprise value of anywhere between 5 to 12 million in dollars that we can easily assimilate into our organization. So in our area, do they have depth? Do they supplement? It's all about our customers. Can we bring in more services to the customers, or is it more about more customers and acquiring their team, and so on? So we look at their ethos, their culture, their set of services. Like for example, we're Microsoft ecosystem. We would prefer to stay in that ecosystem. We're not trying to go hire, acquire a AWS company or a Google company at the moment, because again, that's a completely different strategy, right? That's what we look at. Good MSPs, good companies with product engineering or software development, with right ethos, because look, end of the day, as a services company or solutions company, your biggest assets are your people. The most important question is, can we work with them to create that story of 1 plus 1 is equal to 5, knowing very well that almost never happens. You can't go into relationship thinking 1 plus 1 is going to be 5. 1 plus 1 is going to be like 1.5 to start with, and then
Yeah.
probably slowly go up.
But the biggest problem I've ever seen with acquisitions, and I've been on both sides of it, is the integration of those teams and those processes, and the loss of management job for sure, because you don't need two people doing the same thing. But just the integration of product and teams have been the biggest downfall that I've seen on these sort of mergers and integrations. And so in your case, you don't really have a merger integration problem, right? Because you're buying a solution, it's a new solution, it's a branding change maybe, but you're going to continue to let those teams run the way they
Yeah,
run,
no,
right?
exactly. So our goal is to not go into acquisitions because of where we are, to cost optimize, right? That's not what our intent is. Okay. So we don't try to go in there and say, okay, we're laying off people. No, in fact, our preference is always try to work with the team. Unless the founders, in some cases, the founders are very clear, they want to go retire, they don't want to, they're done. In that case, it's it's a different story. But most of the time, our job is to assimilate their teams into our teams. And that's a tough, as you rightly said, it's not easy. That's where we take time. We're not an acquisition spree. Like, we don't do 10 acquisitions per year, and then figure out, okay, we acquired 10 companies, now what do we do with them? No, every acquisition for us matters. So we take the time to make sure that we map out exactly how this is going to transpire for us. So
Yeah, you're the first person I've talked to ever where you're gaining growth through this acquisition, right? It's super interesting to me. Is this I consider growing revenue in business a marathon. It's a grind. It's a marathon. You got to be out there every day. You got to make those relationships. You're planting a seed that 2 years from now might grow into a tree. And obviously, it's a game of numbers. So the larger you are, it grows, right? Larger. But you're doing it. And I'm not saying you're not getting some of that, because I'm sure you're getting some of that, right? But you've decided to take the tact of, maybe it's a crude way of saying it, buying it, right? I'm going to buy that growth here. I'm going to buy that growth there. And that's been working for you, right? Like, you've been able to buy that growth and gain that. But I just wonder then, again, I have no experience here, but the one thing I love about my little company is we've taken no money from anybody, grown it. Like, I had $10,000, We started it, right? And my first company, I raised 5 million and ended up in a large amount of debt. And you always feel that debt. I always felt the $5 million debt. The idea of wanting to raise more, I was always like, no, I just feel like you're throwing more weight on top of me, right? Where here, I owe nobody anything. It's all cash flow. And so my point is that you're acquiring this revenue, but that also means that you're acquiring debt, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Is that stressful? It doesn't matter. It's like, talk a little bit
Oh,
about
yeah.
that.
So it's stressful, but I also feel like if you have a good strategy, you know, it'll work out in the end. Okay, let me take a step back here. Um, Organic growth is also very important. You cannot buy your way out of this. It cannot be an organic growth all the way. So the approach we took was we want to grow every year about 25%. That's where we would like to see. And if you feel like, in a given year, organically, let's say we can do about 12 to 15, okay, then we say, okay, let's then go, inorganically for about 10. Our growth majority, look, end of the day, two things that are super important to us. What we do for our customers, just be very obsessed about, what we do for them. For a small company, our differentiation is being nimble, being responsive, being there for them. To our teams, right? These two are super important to us. So then that's how we approach. So let's say we do 15% organically, then we get to 10% inorganically. That's the approach that we took. Yes, we have to incur debt. In fact, I would prefer to use debt to the extent I can if debt is cheaper. Now, the last couple of years, was not cheaper, so it definitely had an impact on us, but we were able to balance it out. But in the long run, if you can do it through debt, I would advise you to do it through debt because equity in the long run is more expensive to give out. Now, the other thing I would say is you need to have a good partner. Like we were lucky to have a great partner who helped us through, and they would do the modeling. They would be with us, waiting it. They would point flags. So we had a lot of advice and help as we go through these acquisitions. So it's not as straightforward as that. But scale is important. See, we have to invest in solutions every year. We have to invest in competency. We have to invest in our teams. And for all of this to happen, support all of that, scale is important. So at the end of the day, if I can get to 25% year over year, then we're in a good place. I would love to get there organically. In fact, for several years, COVID happened, it went down. Then of course after that, we grew organically about 30%. And then of course it kind of plateaued a little bit based on the market. So 25% is where we look at. I know not all of our growth comes from inorganic. We have a excellent customer base. In fact, if I look at our customers now, I mean, we have amazing customers. We actually started developing industry-specific solutions 2 years ago. So we have solutions that are specifically for power and utilities, for manufacturing, and for healthcare, and so on. And that is really helping us as well to say, okay, let's go deeper into the industries and understand the industry's problems and solve them. So you have to have organic strategy. You cannot have only an organic strategy, but if you balance them very well and combined with that proper debt leverage structure.
Now, last year was tough for companies like yours and mine because budgets were all basically frozen last year. Nobody wanted to spend anything until after the election. I think the companies that did best got to retain their clients. The companies that didn't retain, there was very little growth last year. I mean, I'm sure you experienced some of that. It was a scary time going into Q2 last year when everybody shut everything down.
Organically, we grew about 14% last year, which was still okay from my perspective.
That seems ridiculous that you even did that last year. I mean, last year was tough.
And we had to spend time to build look, as you grow bigger, right? You need to build your own organic go-to-market engine. And you need to get it right. It took us a couple of iterations on exactly what to do with our marketing teams, our lead gen teams, and our consulting teams to get that mix right. Which events do we go to? The whole go-to-market engine has to be right. And of course, if you don't have good solutions, you won't be relevant.
Well, yeah, you might get the meeting, but you won't get hired. Yeah.
I'm very proud of our teams. Every time we are we have a seat at the table. We almost always walk away with some way to help them.
That's awesome. Now, moving away from money, your next big problem is making people feel like they work at ProArch and not their clients that they're working for, right? So, what do you do to make the employees and the people that work for you feel like they're part of that family? How do you get people to feel that and want to stay long term? Because people will leave every couple of years for money. That's just the way it works.
As I said earlier, company like ProArch, for me, Teams is all we've got. I mean, our IP, yes, we have a lot of platforms, solution accelerators, solutions, they're all IP, but the most important IP is our people and what they bring to the table. So, in fact, I'm incredibly lucky. We have an excellent, amazing team across all of our practices, both technology practices as well as industry practices. Um, Again, we're fully remote. We give them a lot of flexibility to, you know, just giving them the autonomy to bring their best self is super important. You have to compensate them well. That's as basic as it gets. Um, but let's remember this: when we go to customers, right, we take our solutions. So we're not a staffing company. In other words, we don't, just staff people and then forget about them. We deliver a solution, whether it's our managed services, whether it is our, product engineering. Most of our services are where we take pride in what the value we're adding, and that our teams love that. Our teams love the fact that we will make a difference. We're able to actually add value, and how we measure that value is super important. Whether we're helping someone to build a product or protecting their infrastructure from security or risk perspective.
You're getting projects, right? Development projects that you're working, but you don't do any work where you're helping to supplement teams for companies that are building product. You just prefer to have you build your own product development engineering, so ops teams around that.
So we do, but that's minimal. So most of our work starts with them coming to us saying, "Hey, I have this problem, this complex problem. Can you help us solve this?" Okay, that's how it starts. Whether they're trying to set up a data platform, they've tried it for 6 months and they couldn't go anywhere with that, or they set it up incorrectly and they're now trying to figure out, that it's not really working the way they're supposed to work, or they've built a product, they've launched it and realized, oh my God, there's so many. Sorry about the noise again.
All right, wait, pause 1 second, and Kevin, you can keep this. Santosh's building, they decided to wash the windows. This is their second time around, so apparently they don't know how to wash the window the first time. We edited that out of the show, but you were just in the middle of a good thing here, and there's no way to
I
edit
know.
that out.
I know. Sorry about that.
So you got to love you know what's funny? While they continue to bang on the window, like I haven't worked in an office in so long, but I forgot that even exists.
Oh, no. I love to. I live very close by. We have a big family. I love to work from the office because it gives me the space that I need. I don't. Again, if it's commute was a problem, then I would have worked from home. But I know.
No, it's just I remember the first time I worked in a very large building, and they gave me an office space, and suddenly I turned around and there's a guy hanging out. Like it was only like maybe 10 stories, but still like that was like freaking me out at the time,
I know.
man.
That's what's happening here. That's what's happening
Yeah,
here.
they're washing the windows, and the windows are thin.
Yep. Yep.
But I mean, we're almost running out of time anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I so appreciate talking to you today, because you're the first person I've talked to that yeah, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, I've talked to a lot of CEOs. Your strategy is sort of the first one that I've sort of come across, and I find it really fascinating. Like we've talked about at a small level sometimes acquiring a company here or there. It just scares me. Plus the paperwork. We just bought, my business partner and I on the side bought an archery company because we're into the hunting and stuff, right?
Wow.
And this is very small deal, Santosh, to the point where when we contacted our lawyer, and they told us the price tag, I went, hey, that's like almost 30% of what we're paying for the company. And they said, it doesn't matter, Bill, if you're buying a company at X or you're buying a company at 10 million. This is what it costs to do all of the paperwork around an acquisition like that. And I cried to them, so they kind of cut it down a little bit in price. But like that never occurred to me, that I was going to buy this for X and it was really going to be X plus a large number on top just to dot the I's and cross the T's. Like it's just so, the thought of like going through it just feels exhausting to me, man. But it sounds like you got a great partner with the financing and a great partner, and you've done this enough times, I guess, at this point, like you just know what it is, what it's going to cost, and you just do it, right?
Just knowing what you're up against, knowing how to make things work. I was lucky that I didn't have a terrible, disaster so far. I wouldn't say every acquisition will work, but there are great companies out there right now. We're talking to one company based out of New Jersey. Excellent customers, good team. That's what we look for. Small companies, because we're not, and it really is better that I'm looking for small companies because I care about them and I care about their customers. As I said, acquisitions for us is not to go in there and try to optimize their costs, because you know we don't really get much out of that. That's not why we do it. But if you do it right, you know, be happy to talk to you maybe offline some other day. Share our experiences, because I'm part of a CEO club here in Atlanta, and I know companies like HVAC companies, manufacturing companies who grew much more aggressively through M&A to the scale that they want to be entrepreneurs. With a little bit of financial support, they've done
It's
wonders.
it's interesting because in my first business we acquired, so this has always stuck with me. We acquired another company to help grow our business and our customer base, right? And my business partners, once they hired the company and the guy, they basically handcuffed him from doing what he did best, to the point where the whole acquisition just flopped because he couldn't do what he, and it's always sat in the back. I was the technology partner at the time. I didn't have, and I was really young in business. I didn't have enough. Today it wouldn't have happened. I'm strong enough of a person to have walked in the room and slammed my hand on the desk, but at the time I didn't know any better. Anyway, it's always sat back to me that we did this. Like, we hired them because they were really good at this thing. And then when they came in, we told them that they were doing it wrong and made them change. And I'm just like, I don't know. We bought them because they were good here, And so that's kind of what I'm hearing, right? Like, we're buying you because there's a piece that you're doing really, really well that we want to be a part of. And the ability to just, at some level, it's not 100% because they still have to meet numbers and blah, 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 right? But for the most part, operationally, right? You just keep doing what you're doing, and we don't want to trample on that, because that's why we're here.
Yeah. So in our case, um, it's not about them doing their own thing, right? I think it's very important. Setting the expectations is extremely important. They have to understand that during the simulation process, they will have to give in something, and we'll have to give in something to borrow the best parts of them. So as long as we're adding value to their customers and their teams feel like, okay, they have growth path, they have career path, everything will work out. But if you go into with the expectation that, okay, we'll let you kind of do your own, or we will keep your solutions as they are and there won't be any changes, no, no.
No, but
That's
one advantage of sometimes being acquired like this is you can't get very large customers sometimes because you just don't have enough revenue because you're a scary client to them, right? We had one client, as we've been growing, that wanted us to have an insurance level at a certain number. And we had to go back and say, we don't generate enough revenue for that number. They won't sell us the policy, right? And we had to say it, but now we're wondering if they're going to do business with us, right? I mean, overnight, when you come in, they suddenly have access to customers they never would have had access to. I mean, there's something to say about that too.
Absolutely. We went through those cycles, believe me. Now we're lucky enough to say, at least from liability insurance perspective, we could do business with most enterprises, but you are absolutely right. We went through a period of time where we simply couldn't do business with large enterprises. Period.
Yeah, they wouldn't do business with you. You're too much risk. Unless you have like the niche that nobody else has and they have no choice to take the risk.
Exactly. For
Yeah.
example, I mean, yeah, that and couple of those niches really helped us getting into like enterprise level customers. As I said, now that we don't have the problem, but when we had the problem, like us being very good at like one of the things we do for power generation companies is we actually protect their OT. We look at their data that comes from their OT networks, not just IT assets. Not many companies actually can do that. Not many companies have the capability to go look at their OT data, OT assets, not only to protect them, manage them, patch them, but also start looking at their data to really give them the insights that they want to do. So that helped us when we work with large, PE firms that owned hundreds of plants.
They can't really go anywhere else. So the risk is now null and void, right? And you get, yeah, there is something to say about the niche, but then again, that only gives you growth within that. Yeah, it's super interesting sort of stuff here. But yeah, and I guess at some level it's a family business, so mom and dad are happy, right? Mom and dad are just thrilled with the investments that they made in their kids. Look,
They are no longer with us. They both passed away, but I'm sure that they're happy wherever they are. I mean, we grew up as a family. Family comes first, kind of mentality. So wherever they are, I'm hoping
do you
that they.
still have family in India, or is everybody now in Atlanta?
So we're four of us, right? Three of us live here in Atlanta. My brother and my sister. One sister lives in India, and of course, extended family lives here in the States and India, which we're all over the place.
Very, really cool. All right, we are out of time. I loved your story, man. And I really appreciate you being honest and sharing. Even the last 10 minutes of our conversation. It's really insightful. There are people that listen to this, I think, that want to be entrepreneurs, and ignorance is bliss, right? Almost every one of these stories starts out as, if I knew then what I know now, I might not have done it, right? And it's good sometimes. The ignorance allows you to just do crazy things because you just don't know any. Even like when your parents are telling you, you don't care. You're 20. Like in your 20s, you don't listen to anybody.
Ah, all right.
But I really appreciate your time. So we're gonna put it in the show notes. But what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they wanted to reach out after the show?
Oh, LinkedIn. I'm relatively active, thanks to my team and my own efforts. So LinkedIn was the best way to reach out to me.
All right, perfect. We'll get that in the show notes. So this is the Ardan Labs podcast signing off. Santosh and Bill Kennedy, hoping to see everybody again real soon.